Relatives, we are here today to say no more to the pollution and destruction of our Earth Mother. For far too long, we fed and suffered from the hand of capitalism and consumerism. We've been given dirty water to drink and been told it's always been this way. As an Indigenous woman, I have only to look at my ancestors and know truth. We have never stopped fighting the battles for our mother. We've been murdered, moved, and seen our homes mutilated by the descendants of those who came to our lands with good intentions for themselves. The reality is that this just isn't an Indigenous issue anymore. This is a world issue. This affects everyone. We, as Indigenous peoples, can't continue to fight these battles alone. We need you, the citizens of this earth, to step into roles that can help elevate what we've been doing since the dawn of time. We need you to stop and listen. From the Amazon to the prairies of this very nation, helping is no longer a photo opportunity or a story to tell over wine and tapas. Helping is finding the cure, and the cure is knowledge. We as Indigenous people are the protectors. Please learn from us. There is no more time for pride or pointing fingers. We only have one Earth Mother. Kinanaskomitin, thank you. I am so grateful to all of you for being here today.
Tansei nawagomaganak. Dakota ni tsigatson. Nia nehia egwameti iswa. Greetings, my relatives. My name is Dakota. I am a Korean Métis woman who came from the plains and what is now Saskatchewan. I come from a line of healers and Mushkegee people, medicine people. And I'm here today as an Indigenous woman, a biology student, and a future healer to speak on the importance of preserving the land that nourish us and give us our medicine. Our ways of healing have been around for generations, and many of our medicines have become the basis for modern Western pharmacology. For example, the Pacific yew tree, Taxus brevifolia, is indigenous to Chinook, Klamath, Yurok, Modoc, and Hoopa lands, to name a few. These First Nations use this sacred plant for medicine by putting its needles in tea and using its needles to treat wounds. In 1971, scientists affirmed what indigenous science and healers had already discovered by identifying the chemical compound paclitaxel, which was developed and is now used under the trade name Taxol, a popular chemotherapy drug used to treat ovarian, breast, and lung cancers. There are many more examples of the importance of maintaining our natural sources of medicine, but this is only one. We must understand that Indigenous people's history, Nehiawag's history, Turtle Island's history, is all of our futures. When the Amazon burns and the water levels rise, it is not only Indigenous people who lose access to the medicines that were once available in those territories. We all lose access to the plants and medicines that hold the cures to treating and curing disease and treating chronic illness. We all have a stake in this. There is Indigenous and traditional knowledge worldwide that tells us not to go where we do not belong. And when we encroach upon sacred land and natural territories in the Amazon, in the Congo Basin, on the plains, when we lose that land to cattle ranching, land and highway development, logging, and rising waters, we are exposing those most at risk to disease and pathogens that we do not have treatments for whatsoever. Deforestation and the degradation of our mother are dangerous, and this is why. I am not here for myself today, but for the 7th generation to come after all of us. Collectively, we must affirm indigenous sciences and defend our medicines so that we may continue to gather them and heal with ceremony as we have done for millennia, and to pray that we come to our senses. We march for the indigenous folks who cannot join us today because they are protecting our mother as we speak. At Standing Rock, at Mauna Kea, in the Amazon. We march because indigenous people are disproportionately affected by climate change, undrinkable waters, and displacement. We are here because our lives are directly connected to the land. Let me make one thing clear and explain why we have such a stake in this. Indigenous people are not just stewards of the land, we are the land. If the land suffers, we suffer. If our water suffers, we suffer. If the four-legged nation, winged nation, finned nations suffer, we suffer. We must address climate change as a human rights issue, as a social justice issue. We must address this from a multi-perspective problem. This is a multi-perspective problem, and we must address it from multiple perspectives.
Thank you.
We must do this because we all have a stake in the state of our climate and our world. All of our descendants do as well. We are the future ancestors. And for that reason, we march today to plant the seeds of change. I call to you, my relatives, to plant them with us and help them grow. Ginanas komiten, ai hai.
Hello, my name is Aurelia. I am Mexica and Choctaw, indigenous to Mexico as well as North America. As an indigenous two-spirit woman, I come from ancestors who have faced lifetimes of violence to keep our culture alive and to preserve the planet we live on. I'm here to speak on that violence. I'm here today to march for all the indigenous people who have died protecting the land that we walk on. I'm here today to speak and march for the 164 environmentalists that were murdered last year. I'm here to march for all the indigenous people who are on the front lines fighting to save the Amazon and all those who are on Mauna Kea protecting another. While you march today, think about whose blood has been spilled for these office buildings and coffee shops. Think about how we indigenous people have been fighting to stay in harmony with the planet for more than 500 years. We are the protectors of water and land. We have the knowledge on how to live happily without exploiting our resources. We ask you to listen to our voices and to stand with us so that we can continue protecting this planet for the 7 generations ahead of us. Tazagamati. Thank you.
Oi, bom dia. Meu nome é Yasmin. Eu sou indígena brasileira. Hi, my name is Yasmin. I am indigenous to Brazil. I invite everyone to take a deep breath and get present in your body. I want you to listen to these words that I'm about to say. I don't want you to analyze them. I don't want you to go off and think about solutions or plans. All I ask is for you to listen, receive these words, and feel them in your body. Indigenous genocide is still happening today on this planet. We allow this. We allow this with our choices, our habits, our need for convenience, our staying silent, our playing small, our denial, and our withdrawal. We allow this when we choose to ignore the calls for help. We allow this with our unwillingness to look in the mirror and believe that the eyes looking back can create a change, a movement. Every time we decide to stay silent and believe our voice doesn't matter, we give permission for another person to do the same over and over until we become a nation of I can't do anythingers. Then we look out into the world and wonder why it's so corrupt, why the people in power are there, and why there is so much stagnance. It is because of our own denial of our power and capability to make a difference. It is because of our refusal to stand up and rise. Indigenous genocide is still happening today on this planet. We allow this. Let these words sink in. Where do you feel it in your body? What do you feel? Or perhaps you don't feel anything. Maybe you feel numb. If that is your experience, do not judge it. It is not wrong. But with that being said, I ask you to question that numbness and what it's protecting. Typically, numbness shows up when we really don't want to feel something because of how uncomfortable it may feel. It's a coping mechanism. Have we become so armored that we reject these words because they trigger such deep emotion for us? I invite you to put down those walls and experience your emotions for what they are right now. Indigenous genocide is still happening today on this planet. We allow this. Let it in. Let this reality in. Feel it, accept it, experience it, like our ancestors and Indigenous communities must do so every day. And now, I just want you to sit with your experience. I ask you to be present with what is here for you. Is it pain, grief, anger, powerlessness? Is it guilt? No matter what shows up for you as a result of these words and this truth, your homework is to take those feelings and channel them into action. Channel them into transformation, into effective change. We have reached a point where we can no longer avoid or repress our rage. We can no longer afford to not act on our unfulfillment. Just feeling bad is no longer an option because it is not effective. But feeling bad and using that as momentum to rise up and make a change is. And I want to remind all of you out here today that the power isn't outside of you. The power isn't in the corporations, the media, the people in government, or the big money. Those things only have power because we gave it to them. It goes against everything we've been taught, but just as we gave it to them, we can take it back. With where we spend our money, what we spend our money on, the shows we watch, the articles we share, the words we speak. I want you to feel that and own that. Are we willing to do that? Are we willing to recognize our worth and capability as individuals and as a collective to make shift happen? Because the time is now. We cannot allow more blood to be shed. We cannot allow the murder of Indigenous leaders and people to make room for our first world convenience. We must respect and honor all life, our earth and those who live from her. Today, while you march, I urge you to reflect on these feelings, no matter how uncomfortable, no matter how much you want to believe it's not true. Because the first step of change is acceptance.
For all the Indigenous people who came to march together, as well as a generational resistance group, the march begins at 12, so before, let's all meet to the left of this stage so that we can stand together. Thank you.